Hello and welcome. Today we've got Meghan Walsh and we are going to be discussing child protection, John Walsh and Adam Walsh. Now, just before we begin, you can subscribe to our Telegram channels and to nicholasveniamin.com for our free email updates. And if you're watching this for the first time on YouTube, I will leave the link below in the description for the full interview, unless, of course, myself and Meghan can choose our words wisely due to the insane censorship that's happening right now. Meghan, thank you for joining me. How are you and what have you been up to?
Thank you for having me, Nicholas. I'm doing good today. I'm doing well. What have we been up to? It's been daily between just different threats or different information coming through about my situation, which we'll be getting to today. So really just been trying to stay vigilant on that, as well as get done with paperwork and the courts and everything that we need to. So thank you for having me.
You are very, very welcome. Now, if we could have a little background on you, and also what exactly you want to share with the viewers, if you could do a short presentation, and then we can go ahead with some questions and answers. How does that sound?
Absolutely. That sounds wonderful. Thank you. Well, my name again is Meghan Walsh, and I am the daughter of John Walsh and the sister of Adam Walsh. So John Walsh is known to be the former host of America's Most Wanted on Fox Network, as well as now he has a show In Pursuit with John Walsh on the Discovery Channel, as well as several in between. My brother Adam is known to be the beautiful boy with the baseball bat that disappeared in 1981 from Hollywood, Florida, Sears department store, and was later, his remains were allegedly found later. And it really sparked the national interest and effort towards further protecting our children. Also introduced this pedophile kind of narrative, as well as serial killers. Even more so into the eyes in terms of, having to protect our children. So many people in America definitely know who my father is across the globe. In fact, people are aware of who he is. And unfortunately, there is, as we're finding out, there's a big theme going on in our society today, Nicholas, and that would be narrative versus truth. And we're really realizing a lot of that coming to light. And my father has done wonderful things. Anything I say here, I've really tried to, respect my mother and father. It's not to take away from the great work that they've done. But there are more sides to this than people know, and my father has been paid in the public eye for going on 40 years now, since my brother was taken. Recently, in April of this past April, he actually had the local sheriff, the DCF or CPS, Child Protective Services, and the courts take my three beautiful children from me in an ambush. There was no investigation. There was no prior calls or records, nothing like that of complaints. I'm known in the community. Actually, prior to that, I was an advocate, still am, obviously more so, of family court and CPS corruption and doing something about that, which a lot of people and hopefully many of your viewers are learning about, because this is a national issue and a global issue in terms of how the Child Protective Services works in our country and across our globe, how it's incentivized and what really occurs in that system. But prior to, and people are going to ask, why did he do this? Why did he have our children taken? There is, again, that public persona versus private life. And, my dad, again, has helped many, many people, but also he does have a private side. And my parents have been through a lot of trauma. They've been put in the public eye, and if people actually look at it, there's been a lot of controversy, not only to my brother Adam's case and his disappearance, but also their marriage, their relationship, and their life since. So I actually had started speaking up as a mother of three to my parents about the abuse and coercive control that I'd experienced growing up and was up until this point, until Thanksgiving. of this past year, of last year, not this past Thanksgiving, but the prior, where I went up for Thanksgiving and they actually assaulted me and tried to film it and to frame me to start this process, which a lot of people will be finding out and are finding out happens when you speak up. I started looking at my brother Adam's case. I started asking questions when Epstein was arrested because we had known many of the people. I started being approached about the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which has Richard Branson on the board. I started looking into Haiti and my father's presence in Haiti and connections with Laura Silsby. And then I started going into the original players of all of this. I asked myself and some of my close friends and researchers, what was really going on before the American public were given this narrative of this little boy that disappeared tragically. It's a very emotionally jarring story. And what was really going on in my parents' life. I mean, I grew up with them. I know them. I'm speaking up about abuse. I went through all of their marital turmoil and infidelities growing up. What was really going on? So I started looking into that as well. And things got hairy. Obviously, after the assault on Thanksgiving, I told my parents that we could not, be in contact until they got help. It was not good for me or the children. My mother actually bit me and bloodied my nose, which I will address. I'm actually healing basal cell cancer on my face. So excuse me, everyone, for that. And people wonder, so we'll address that. So yes, I mean, that was the situation. And then my father really couldn't handle it. And again, going back to just how they do this when you apparently speak up or start asking questions, which I thought would be welcomed in my crime fighting family, but apparently and unfortunately it's not. And they have now since taken my home. They again have taken my children. I had to sell my car for the lawyer to find out she was colluding with them. There's been stalking incidents and a lot of different things that fortunately people are coming forward. So I'm here really to speak up about the bigger, notions that pertain to this that would affect the American people or, our society in general. Again, that federalized policing and, this notion of in the best interest of that we're all dealing with masks and vaccines and everything in society today. So hopefully that was a little insight.
Wow, I'm flabbergasted by the information. So you said that your mum bit you on the nose. Is that correct? Did I hear that
right? She bit
me
on the arm and she bloodied my nose and my baby was in my arms while she was trying to take me to the ground. Yes.
Yeah. Can you explain why, if you don't mind?
Again, I've grown up with, a lot of people are using this term narcissist these days. So it's getting a little washed out, but there is a reality of, coercive control, narcissistic abuse. And when you are born into for lack of a better term, Hollywood family or a family that's in the public eye, you have a role to play. And, I was in fashion and music prior to leaving everything about 4 years ago, going on 5 years ago, to really to focus on becoming a healer, helping other people, focused on trauma, as well as being in the community and advocating, for different issues like protecting our children. So.
And what does your father think of this?
My father's an enabler. My father is a very high conflict. He's very, addicted, if you will, to high conflict. My mom is very passive aggressive. So he definitely enables her. He has my entire life because if she's on me, then she's not harassing him or doing things to him. The same with my brothers. I have 2 younger brothers who kind of stay in the side, because they're happy it's just not happening to them. They've even, at the height of my fashion career, they forced me to Passages Malibu rehab for no substance. abuse, nothing where they were told that I was not the scapegoat for the family and that we all need to handle this. They've shot me to therapists since I was small. And my dad even testified to the judge saying, Your Honor, we've tried and paid hundreds of thousands of dollars her entire life to get her diagnosed, and we have yet to get a diagnosis. And again, as I just mentioned, it's actually the career that I went in to help other people. So,
I'm trying to get a vision. I mean, what's your relationship like with both your parents?
right now, we have no relationship. They've kidnapped my children and they have used the local sheriff who he is supporting. But he has a long history with the sheriff. And this is another thing that we are seeing with judges, sheriffs, and local systems, state and local systems, as well as on a national level, obviously. But to keep it here where we're talking, my father has really used the sheriff who he just helped get elected. They have really they're turning our town into our little beautiful small town that we lived in into a police state, if you will. They just got more funding yesterday, and they take my father to get a 5-0 vote. Gabby Patito's father actually just moved to the same town, ironically, out of all the United States, the same month that they started this with me and took my children, had the police ambush us. Again, no investigation, no warrants, nothing. So it's a tactic to scare you. It's a tactic to silence you. And they've been planning it for a while. This is also involving another national issue, and especially in the state of Florida, of guardianship and conservatorship fraud, which with Britney Spears and things like that coming out, people are learning much more how that works. And that's ultimately their goal here, is to get guardianships on my children and to get a conservatorship on me so that they can control what I say and what gets out to the public. My father's begged the judge 3 times to put a gag order on me, which the judge has refused.
So you're saying that now your kids have been taken away from you and are staying with your parents, correct?
Yes, they've taken them and they are with them under state custody, kinship shelter, and they are contacting the fathers of my children who did neglect or abandon us in some way, and working with them. Again, they also get paid, while they do this and take care of my children.
Are they empathetically capable of taking care of your children?
They aren't personally. They have a whole entire team that has taken part in doing this and to injure me and are taking care of my children. I wanted my children to be raised at home in a normal home with routine and play dates and, in the community. And now they're on my parents' island, with nannies raising them, taking them around. And I do get to see them twice a week, supervised for an hour and a half.
That's their grandchildren. So do they have not any empathy that they are not spending enough time with their mother, which is their daughter?
Right. I think that's a big point, Nicholas, especially to my heart and to many people's hearts, that you would think that with their son, going through what they did with their son, especially, that they would really know what it was like to have your children ripped from you and threatened to not be yours anymore, essentially. And they really are not acting like that at all, which again puts further question on my brother Adam's case, which myself and many, many people for 40 years have had questions about. And there are also witnesses that the police have refused to identify and have actually gang stalked them, excuse my having to use that term, but gang stalked them over these 40 years, and many of them are coming forward now, and many of their situations have many of the same players or neighboring counties to the people involved in my situation injuring me currently.
So what is that? Okay, so let's talk about your brother. What was he doing, and what do you believe the true reason of his death really was, and by who?
Well, Nicholas, I will respond like I do to everyone initially. I was not there, so I don't know exactly what happened. I really tried to stick to fact, documents, witnesses, things like that. And that's what I started looking at. And anyone that does look at my brother's case, which is public record, will find that there are many holes in it. There are many missing documents, integral pieces to the case, as well as many people, including law enforcement themselves, that questioned and had many different theories, as opposed to the one, and I believe in 96, or no, I'm sorry, 2006, excuse me, I can't remember right now, but when Otis Toole was declared my brother's murderer. And that's really where I started. And I said, enough of all these narratives, all these different opinions and stories. I want to look at who my dad was working for, what his lifestyle was at the time, different things like that. My parents did try to sue Sears department store after my brother was found, and they actually ended up dropping the case because my mother's lover at the time, who was living with them and significantly younger, actually gave a deposition stating and describing my parents' drug use, excessive drug use, their lifestyle, and even stating that Adam, because of the domestic issues in the home, that Adam might have even just run away. Again, I was not there, but the records have a lot of holes in them. There's a lot of different stories, and Otis Toole came from Joe Matthews, which is anyone that knows my dad's work knows about Joe Matthews. He's the one that declared Otis Toole the killer, and apparently found undeveloped a roll of camera roll of film that was undeveloped. Years and years later, had it developed, and said that he saw the face of Turin in the carpet samples, which had actually been lost. The entire car had been lost. They said a machete that was found with blood on it, they said was mishandled. So a lot of things that did not add up, and especially Joe Matthews take and how he came to the conclusion that Otis Toole was the murderer. Otis Toole was the lover of Henry Lee Lucas, who is one of the country's most well-known serial killers, and he was on death row in Texas under Bush. And Bush was governor at the time, known for never giving pardons out, being very strict and stringent on pardoning death row inmates. And suddenly, right before his execution date, Bush pardons Henry Lee Lucas, and Henry goes on in interviews to talk about how people think that Otis Toole is partially retarded, and how these guys were all serial killers, but really this had to do with the CIA. This also, for viewers, goes into the finders. If everyone's familiar with that in America, the issue of the finders. But stating how they were actually chosen to be these ugly faces in the public eye for these narratives that would be created, and that we've seen questioned since, especially now. People are questioning a lot. And I think we saw it most recently with the Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie case, a lot of people questioning that.
So is the reason for his death, I'm so sorry to hear, my condolences, was that because he was standing and exposing the truth?
My brother Adam, I'm sorry, Nicholas, was 6.5 years old when he was kidnapped. So my father was involved in the hotel business. He was working at the Diplomat Hotel, and he was going back and forth to the Bahamas, to Paradise Island, which has to do with Resorts International, which would again affiliate back to the CIA, also drug trafficking. Hank Asher is another gentleman that got involved and is known for his databases. So this has a lot to do with bringing in databases. Again, with that federalized policing, facial recognition, this was all, starting back in the day. But Hank Asher developed LexisNexis search engine. He developed Matrix, and people will know him also from Polaris with the Clinton Foundation. So all of this is very connected. They were the two, my father and Hank Asher, that were going into Haiti in 2010, working on med tents and doing stuff like that as well. So it's a big circle. I know we have limited time today. Today's kind of just an introduction for people who haven't heard my story or maybe haven't looked at this from this perspective. And I'm really here just to look at things and investigate. I'm not an investigator. I'm not a lawyer, but I've been put in this situation to speak out. And we really, there's many people talking about child trafficking and it getting blown in different directions and proportions. But I really want the American public and the other viewers, because there is CAST and different things in the UK for child protective services and across the world that are really utilizing this system to take our children and in other ways enslave us and tear our families apart. That's highly incentivized. I mean, from the Clintons, the Social Security Act, Title 4D, and many things like that. There are hundreds of thousands of parents in this country that are loving and fighting for their children that were ripped from their arms and are being put through the system and drugged and abused and even killed, all for incentives or retaliation.
I just want to apologize for the fact that I'm not familiar with this story, and it's a story that's so important that I should be aware of, and I don't know why I haven't been aware of it or come across it. So I do apologize. I really want to help expose this story because the people need to know. Going back to your brother, so are you saying or believing that he may be a victim of child trafficking?
People have many different theories, and I don't mean to be evasive on answering your question.
Mm-hmm.
I just tried to keep it open because I'm speaking to you guys in the middle of the fight, if you will. We're really finding out different things. So there's different theories on whether he went missing, who he was abducted by, whether my parents had involvement in it, if this was a sacrifice dealing with Rupert Murdoch and his, my father being elevated to a celebrity status, if you will. We've got all ends of the spectrum. And Nicholas, I will say, which I've only said on, I believe, one, maybe two other interviews, days after they took my children, I received a phone call, voicemail actually, that said, "Hi, Meghan, it's Adam. I'm coming home after a long time. I arrive in Hollywood sometime tomorrow. I'll see you then." So there is someone in America currently claiming, I have no idea, claiming to be my brother Adam and alive. And he recollects a lot. He speaks about a lot that is not public knowledge. We did try to do 2 DNA tests. So I'm trying to think of what the viewers would be thinking as I'm telling you. We did try to do 2 DNA tests, which actually the labs lost our tests. And then when we were calling back, they refused to answer after several tries. Again, why you haven't heard this probably, or this story, is because my father is a national hero. And he's very connected to every 3-letter agency and down. And so there is a huge media blackout on this right now. I mean, Nicholas, where's even the headline saying, John Walsh has to save his grandchildren from his crazy daughter? Well, why aren't we even at least doing that? So we have seen, the Inquirer, Project Veritas, BuzzFeed UK, New York Post, all of these media outlets have been contacted and they've decided to keep it quiet.
Can you just say why is it that you say he's a national hero? Or are you saying that because that's the facade, the narrative?
It's the facade, but Nicholas, if you actually spoke with fans of my father, they are hardcore. I mean, this is, and I understand, this is a lot for people to hear. My father has been a national hero in our country, and he has saved, in the public eye, he has saved a lot of children. He's been the crime fighter and the face to speak up. But sadly, we're seeing the ulterior motives and now, let alone anything. If he did nothing in the past, Nicholas, what he's done here with taking my children in the manner that he has, false reporting alone is a 3rd-degree felony to Child Protective Services, up to 5 years. So the fact that he's doing it in the manner that he is and being so quiet, no contact, he's being very controlled right now. He's got teams of people, just really did not help, thinking that this was just my doing or about me, sadly.
You mentioned earlier that there were some associations there with Epstein. Do you want to tell us exactly if your father was associated with people who were around Epstein and for what reason?
Well, absolutely. I think people don't realize that it is a club and many of us are not a part of it. As George Carlin would say, it's one big club. And I did grow up around many of these people or coming, in contact with, whether it was, for a short period of time for a project or an event or, different things like that, or just personally. So I was born, with politicians' bumper stickers around me. At the White House, there's many pictures of Reagan holding me. We recently found one where I'm in what appears to be a basement of the White House with several nefarious players and my parents as well. So, I was around all these people is why I say that in many different arenas, from politics to fashion, music, art, and even in Morocco with Hermes, the Hermes family, and doing that. So we've been all over, and